Hi, Kyle. So this is our second session when we talk about some of the latest content that we share across social. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well.
I know that you had a lot of comments on that feedback video on my IGTV channel on Instagram. I know you've read the book. Thanks for the feedback.
hmm
So I thought it would be interesting to share some of the thoughts that you and I have as we analyze feedback in general, feedback that we give, we receive. I think that it would be a good idea maybe to start with the last episode that I recorded for those who may have not seen my IGTV Live. And then I would love to hear your reaction to it, Kyle. So does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
I want to share this quick diagram, the sketch that I made the last time on my weekly live. Here I talked about the continuum, the feedback continuum between criticism and praise, going from that negative feedback to positive feedback. The ultimate goal of feedback is our growth, and that unlike bad reviews that feedback has been receiving across leaders, leadership coaches, and books lately because of how subjective it is, my contention is that all feedback is valuable and it leads to our growth. The problem is when there's no feedback in the middle, when there is nothing really that you can learn or take from feedback that we receive. And feedback is always dependent on our skills, our observation, the level of our observation and our knowledge of the human condition, observing that human condition and sharing. So one of the reasons why feedback is so subjective and limiting in many cases is that it's based on five senses that we have. We compare what we experience in others based on what we have touched, heard, seen, smelled, and tasted before. That's what I have in the middle of this diagram. But when we give or receive feedback, we need to separate the person giving the feedback from the content of the feedback into its parts and into its individual roots, and then cultivate that part which will lead to our growth and which will cultivate us at the end of the day. So if I'm presenting to a friend of mine who is in the software industry, for example, and I'm in the pharmaceutical industry, and he praises me on my presentation, I can't really take that praise fully. Maybe I did a good job of simplifying that information to him, but he's not an expert into the accuracy and how relevant that medical or scientific information may have been to the audience. So I need to go to someone else, for example, to get someone else's feedback. So that was some of the background, Kyle, as you listened in, and thanks for your support on my IGTV channel. So I would love to hear what you think. How does this relate to your life, to your experiences, and also that book that you've read?
Yeah, so definitely relationship is a huge portion of how we receive feedback. We're going to receive feedback very differently from someone that our loved one or our partner versus our boss or just a colleague. So definitely, separating those two is key, and making sure that, your own perceptions within those isn't, skewing then your interpretation of that feedback. Praise from him might not mean as much, but, from the content standpoint, but maybe he's a great speaker. And so that praise still does in the way that your presentation skills overall, or he might be great at giving criticism or feedback in that sense and your presentation skills, but not on the content. So separating out what type of feedback based on that relationship and that person's background can you do? Because everything is, as you said, based on your five senses and your experiences. So you have your own idea and intent in anything that you do, and then someone else has their own observation, the impact on them, and what that result was on their side. And there's oftentimes a disconnect between those two, which is where you have to really dig in and understand, where is that feedback coming from? what is it that they observed. So I think, one of the biggest things as far as allowing feedback to drive growth is, not just dividing away from the relationship, but it's also dividing away from, a lot of different triggers that you get when you have feedback. So in addition to relationship, I would say also you have kind of truth triggers. And that's, we're really good at spotting the wrong. So you might start saying something and, immediately my mind goes, oh, well, that's not right. I did this thing over here the other day, and, that's complete contradiction to what you said. And at that point, your mind shuts off. You stop listening. All you're doing is proving that feedback wrong. But what you need to do is stay present and understand that they're coming from a different perspective than you are. Learn everything you can about that perspective, what it is that they noticed, how it came across, and not get stalled by that wrong spotting that you have of seeing that one portion that wasn't true in your mind, to allow yourself to have that growth. So when you're getting that feedback, I really like to focus on just absorbing as much of that feedback as possible, not passing any judgment on it, and asking those questions, to learn as much as I can, so that in my free time or when I'm alone with my own thoughts, then I can dissect that feedback. Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe there are instances where I can contradict what he said, but more than likely there is a truth in his observation of he is criticizing me on, or what advice he's giving me. And it's always then, say, separating out all those different pieces and identifying what are the truths in what they're saying, and how can you use those to better yourself and grow your mindset, grow your outward, capacity.
Yeah. I agree with that. And, I also find that all feedback, whether negative or positive, usually has at least some parts that are true, like you just mentioned. Unless it's someone that doesn't know you completely and it's like a stranger, an enemy, or, arch rival or something like that. Usually, even that, that most unpleasant feedback that we get usually has some part that is true. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of what they choose to focus on, and that's why we need to filter. And I like your idea of actually giving it time as well, not reacting right away, to really absorb the information and then make the appropriate action and follow up. I also have seen very often how people attribute feedback or qualities to people, or provide feedback that is more relevant to someone's status or where they stand, rather than on the actual action, their behavior. And they don't separate the two as well. I for example, have seen people in a reality show that I've observed, for example, many years ago, mm-hmm. where these two people were just not exemplary people by any means, by anyone else on the team or in that group. Everyone just detested them at an individual level. But what was exemplary about them was that their partnership grew to such a degree, their relationship grew in a way that was exemplary, even if they weren't themselves role models. And so you can always take the positive from something. And do you believe, Kyle, that we need to concentrate on our strengths versus our weaknesses? Or do you think that we need to also concentrate on some of the weaknesses as well in order to grow?
I think we need to, concentrate on all of them. And I think that brings up an excellent point that, has really resonated with me, and I've seen firsthand in my interactions with people that I mentored or people that I was advising. They might bring you something and ask for feedback,
right?
And they're asking. You use that general term of feedback. Like, here, what do you think of this? Well, in what way? Are they looking for, some appreciation for all the work that they did into this? And, want to know that you say, appreciate all that hard work. Maybe they're looking for coaching of, more criticism. How can I make this better? what things could I do to improve in whatever aspect it is. And then sometimes they're really looking for an evaluation of where do I stand compared to everybody else? Where do I stand on the team? But when you go in and ask for feedback, if you don't clarify what type of feedback you're looking for, or if the person who is giving the feedback doesn't ask, like, are you looking for ways to improve this? Are you looking to see how this compares to others? Oftentimes then that feedback falls on deaf ears. So I could go in asking my boss for feedback, and they say, oh, you're doing great, everything is wonderful, and that should leave me feeling awesome, right?
Right.
But if I was going in there of wanting ways that I can improve, how can I be doing better, then I walk away from that interaction going, well, that doesn't help me. Like, that's frustrating. Like, I can't be doing everything great, right?
Right.
And so, having that idea of what kind of feedback are you looking for is so important, and an understanding between the two people of what type of feedback you're looking for.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you need to clarify that. And I guess you need to ask for feedback. I think that's the great point you just brought up. And then also to be specific. Ask, be clear, and be specific about what kind of feedback you want. And
so relating to the strengths and weaknesses, sometimes you're looking for feedback on what am I doing great, what are my strengths.
Yeah.
Other times you're going in looking for what are my weaknesses, what can I improve on.
Yeah.
And if you don't specify which one you're looking for, you might get the opposite, in which case you leave that meeting, say, not happy and don't feel fulfilled, like you got what you needed out of that feedback.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I agree with you completely about the fact that we don't only need to concentrate and focus on our strengths, but also on our weaknesses. For several reasons, we need to learn how to apply our strengths to our weaknesses so that our weaknesses can then become strengths. We don't know all of our weaknesses, and our weaknesses can serve a greater purpose in different areas for different audiences at different times also. For example, I remember receiving feedback about being very detail-oriented or very comprehensive on presentations early in my career, for example, right? So that could be seen as a weakness for some audiences. But that same kind of content, when I repurposed it in an article, and when it captured a lot of interest from other people, other organizations, innovative artificial intelligence companies who wanted a deep dive and something a little bit different that pushed the boundaries and that was comprehensive as well. So yes, it may be considered a weakness to some, but you need to learn how to also diversify your skills, because nowadays, the skills that are demanded of us have increased, right, exponentially. So we need to explore our weaknesses and make them our strengths.
And again, how you took that feedback, I feel like has so much to do with your mindset. So, one person could hear that feedback and, think of it as a criticism.
Right.
Oh, I'm being too nitpicky, or I'm taking too long on this.
Right.
Versus, and that's could be due to what's going on in the rest of their life at that time that they took it that way.
Yeah.
Versus you took it as, I am very detail oriented. Like, that's a strength of mine. I'm maybe good at picking up those finer details, and I can use that to my advantage. And so really that mindset around what's going on. And again, that's where clarifying, how did that person mean it? And in that situation anyways. And again, it depends on the situation that you're in. Sometimes being detail oriented is great. Other times being detail oriented is not so great.
Kyle, thanks a lot for your time. I have a feeling that we're going to have more conversations about feedback. Yeah, and I have a feeling that many of our friends also may find this valuable, and they're going to comment. So stay tuned to more episodes, sessions with Kyle, guys. Kyle Householder.